age did you decide you wanted to be a weightlifter and why?
At the age of 19, I was 19, yes.
And why did you want to become a weightlifter?
By accident, I walked into the wrong gym.
Oh, really?
That's how it all happened.
Yeah.
I asked one of the guys, where was the nearest gym? This is my hometown, Pietermaritzburg. And he guided me to a gym, of course, because I asked him, where is a gym where I could do my gymnastics? Yeah. So, of course, he sent me to the weightlifting gym, but there they had an apparatus, the gymnastic apparatus, they had it. So, of course, when I walked in there, and a fellow who was coaching there named Kevin Stent, and he is the one that really drove me into it. When he was seeing me doing the exercise, the acrobats, and he said, why don't you come and join us? Weightlifting will help you on your gymnastics. I fell for a joke. That's how I got hooked.
Oh, that's really cool. Weightlifting your first choice of career, or was it gymnastics, or was there something before that? Or?
Gymnastics was the first.
Okay.
And in the convent, the priest was coaching me in gymnastics, and that's how it all started.
Oh, cool. Been your greatest influence professionally on your weightlifting career, and why? Have they been the greatest influence?
The great influence, of course, was Kevin Stent.
Why was he the main influence of your career?
Because he was so brilliant in coaching weightlifting, and yet he learned weightlifting from the book. And when he saw my potential so good, he wanted me, because he could see that South Africa wouldn't let me represent the country, and he wanted me to go to the United States because he saw my potential and my ability.
Have your friends and family been in terms of realizing your dreams?
How supportive they were.
Yeah.
My wife was the most supportive one. Yes, without her, I wouldn't be here.
What 3 attributes do you think you require in order to succeed in today's competitive world of weightlifting?
Just 3 attributes you're talking about, only 3. Well, the very first one, I think, the determination. You've got to be very determined to what your goals are for and what you want to do it for. And once you get into the stage where you're getting into international, that is when you can't stop now. You have to go for all the goals.
Okay. And what would the other 2 be?
Oh, the other two is the second one, I would say, is putting the training. And the third one, which I say to everyone, never despair. Because success only comes from hard work.
Definitely, thank you. What sort of advice would you give to a young person who's embarking upon a new career path?
The same structure I just mentioned, that they must know what they're aiming for in the first instant. Second instant is that once they got into the strive into the sport which they're doing, that is when they shouldn't give up. Because once you start, as I said, never despair, just keep going, because you'll come across obstacles which can deter you and you want to stop. Yeah. And that's what many athletes do.
Oh, thank you. Can you describe the most defining moment of your weightlifting career?
The most
defining and the most important?
Most important one, I think, is when things are going downhill. And that's the moment you should discover your ability, because you are now pushing yourself to the limit. And that's the answer to that one.
Yeah, thank you. What did an average training routine involve or require, and how often did you train, and when you did, how long for?
The first question is when,
What did an average training routine involve?
yes,
How often did you train, and when you did, how long for?
the average time of training is definitely, at least in competitive times, is 2 hours. And that's when you can get to full training. Half an hour, three-quarter hour, it's not good enough. At least 2 hours.
So was that for every day, or
I usually train every second day.
every? So like have a rest day in
That's
between.
right.
Yeah.
I usually do that. But in these days, I think they overdo it. They're training every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You see, if you train every second day, you recuperate, recharge the battery, and back again. And that way, you will have all the energy and strength. But people who trains every day, it become a stalemate eventually.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sacrifice in order for your weightlifting career to survive.
The sacrifice that you got to do is, first of all, early to bed. That is one of the first, because that's where you charge your batteries. Many people think fitness come from just training. Fitness come from, first number one, is sleep. The more sleep you can put in, the more energy you can create. Before that, no energy, because you're overtired and the body hasn't recuperated.
And then we had 3 children at the age.
That people going to nightclubs, youngsters going to nightclubs, you're young too, competing, and that's where the biggest mistake they do, because they don't want to miss out.
Yeah.
When it comes to weekends, they're going to have late nights, very late nights. And of course, by the time comes Monday, they're not so fit to put all the work and training. So the night clubbing is out.
How important was your team in ensuring the success of your weightlifting career?
How the team?
Yeah, like your coach and
Yes.
managers and things like that.
Repeat the question again.
How important was your team in ensuring the success of
Oh,
your
yes.
weightlifting career?
Oh yes, team is very, very important. If you have a good team to work with or train with, your success is much, much closer than you having non-friends together and train together. If you train together, you're inspiring one another. And when one is succeeding, the one will push the other one even harder. And if you have a training partner, it's good to have a competition together, constantly. Inspiration comes from that.
Yeah. The greatest challenge you have faced, and how did you overcome this?
The greatest challenge, now comes the biggest ones. The greatest challenge I've ever had was the South African government, which never let us as black compete in South Africa. And that was my biggest obstacle. And I still didn't give up, because many of my colleagues who got into that position, they just gave up. I didn't. I just proceeded. And every time I made it and successful, and the government come along, there will be no black people in South Africa will compete while it's a South African white government. And that didn't deter me. It just made me work even harder. And eventually, when the failure came along, that I could see that I will not represent a country, then I thought I must get out. And that's the only reason why everything became successful. Because if I stayed in South Africa, I wouldn't be here today. and through the help of my wife too, because when I came to England on my own 3 months before, and I already had their tickets for the ship coming over, and I left it 3 months before, and guess what? When I couldn't find accommodation in England, and I wrote a letter to my wife that I think I should come back because I can't find accommodation for the family. And she was the one that had the determination by saying, whatever
We spoke before
we said before,
we left.
that
We
whatever
had a
happens,
struggle.
we will struggle together no matter thick and thin.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And she,
Yeah.
if she gave up that time, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
She
I just said,
wrote
no,
back to
we'll
me
go
and said,
anywhere. Always remember my mother said, when you're married, you go anywhere where your husband goes. Even if he creeps into a hole, you go with him. And I always thought that we never going to have, if he comes back, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Sold everything. I said, no, we're going to have a go at it. We struggled, but
no, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That is
yeah.
Yes, it's all through the wife. Otherwise, if she gave up, because
And you
remember,
would've come
it's
home.
her with the children.
Mm,
And I was more considering them.
the children, yeah.
And to me, it was a no-no for me to stay, is to come back. But she saw the light that if I come back,
Then he was happy.
there is no,
Yeah.
there's no beginning again.
Mm.
So sorry, I have to ask, what happened? Where did
Then I came, once I wrote the letter and I said to him, so he was happy then. Now he would go and really look for a place. And it was very hard for them to get me out of South Africa because I said, oh, what if he hasn't got a home for you? What are you going to, what are you worried
That's
about?
the South African government.
Depressed us
Yeah.
first. Now you don't want me to go. But then we had a friend, dear friend, he's Chris Brolia. He was a South African and he sort of got Precious to, no, you don't give up. So Precious said no. And then they gave my passport on the last minute.
Yeah.
And then I packed up and I went.
Oh,
Yeah.
awful.
They were really horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. But the hardest part, of course, is that we still had no accommodation when she arrived with the children in
I
Southampton.
had a job.
She got a job now because I got a work permit for her from the Home Office because the company needed a machinist. See, the South African government didn't want to give her a passport by having an excuse that if she gets to England, they'll turn her back.
Yeah.
They can't turn her back because the British law is that a husband and wife and children will accompany. You got it? That was the law.
Yeah.
And of course, the South African government didn't know that that is going to backfire to them.
So they couldn't do anything.
And once I got a work permit for her, and then she had to produce it to the South African government, and they couldn't refuse because they could see it's a work permit. And now, the hard part was when they arrive, I still have no accommodation. So we were walking on the street, pushing the pram with the two children, and looking at all the homes. You know, as you walk on the pavement, you can see the basement, how they're sitting having their Christmas lunch, Christmas meals, and we were marching looking for accommodation.
God.
And eventually, a few Pakistanis were walking,
Indian bus drivers.
and I approached them. I said, "Have you got any accommodation for us?" They said, "You've got a room." Yes, that's all we wanted, a room, and took us there and showed us there's a room right opposite the cathedral.
Catholic
We're Catholics, and right opposite the cathedral, just a walk across the road. Anyway,
So God
and-
had a hand in it.
that's right. And this room was right in front too, looking to the church, and a pianola and one bed,
Everything in the room.
one room with a pianola, taking up all the room, the pianola, and a double bed.
But we were
And
happy.
4 of us slept in the bed, had a Christmas dinner on our lap in the bed. Children had a Christmas dinner on the floor.
But we had a job. Both of us had to work,
And you were together.
and we were together, and we
was
saved and we
important.
saved, and till we had our
Believe it or
first home,
not,
second home.
That was our happiest times, believe it or not.
Yeah.
The happiest. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
it's
amazing,
an
yeah.
amazing story.
When you got nothing
When you
and you got got a roof under you, that's all you required.
Yeah. It's the people, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
That's a fantastic. Is that in your book, Precious? That story.
It's, well, you read it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
And also in
wow.
his...
To
The
read
little
them.
parts and that. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yes,
really-
that's in the book too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's just very, I'm sure. What is the key to success?
Keys to success is what we already just mentioned a bit, is that you never despair, first of all, and you must aim for what you want. When I say aim for what you want, you're aiming for goal. That's all you got to think of. Don't think of second, third. Nobody wants to rub shoulders with number 2 or number 3. Everybody wants to rub shoulders with number 1. So that's what you must aim
I
for.
always said that.
Yeah.
You aim for the top.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the last part is again what I mentioned, never despair, because there will be always obstacles that will deter you, and that should never deter you. If you're strong in your thinking, in your strength and mind, go for it.